Welcome to First Down Sports. I'm your host, Ray Dunn. Sitting beside me tonight is Andy Jardine.
Yo, how's it going?
Very good. Very
Awesome.
good.
Yeah.
It's a very different atmosphere here tonight in the locker room.
We're fresh out of work, and we decided to look at things from a different angle.
Look at things from a different
Friday.
angle.
We don't work tomorrow. That's good.
Back on sound and... Hold on, let me rephrase that. Up on sound and audio, you've got myself, Ray Dunn, running the whole show here tonight.
How's it going, Ray?
We're doing the whole thing from the front of the show.
You might be able to see the soundboard right here. From
That's
this
it.
new angle, so...
We've got, talk about our sponsors here real quick. Again, you've got Moose Light. You know the drill. Tonight's Friday night, so...
Right.
Get out and get yourself some Moose Light. This stuff's scary good.
Scary. I think Friday's the one day you rarely name.
I don't. I don't for some reason.
Yeah.
It's because I'm usually on a football field. And if you're a sports team, organization, school team, you get the drill. Go. You can need hats, shirts, jackets, pens. You go see our buddies at Doyle's Corporate Image.
Doyle's rule.
And the other thing that's tough tonight, I mean, Nick's not here, so we can't joke about Luongos.
No.
No.
That's a damn shame, too.
No Roberto Luongo jokes tonight. So
Right.
if your kitchen sucks, and you know most likely it does, get yourself some Done Right sauce. It's going to fix that kitchen up.
Yeah.
And you can find that here locally at your local Sobeys. In Ontario, it's Longos
and
Jacobson's in Ottawa for our Ottawa listeners. There you go. All right, Andy. So we decided that we were going to rush into it. Our whole recording week went off the rails with Halloween. Mm-hmm. And when I sit back and think about it, you and I should have just continued on Halloween night. We had no kids to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. We should have just recorded anyways, and and if some kids drop by here, how many kids did you get?
I had 4 kids.
Wow, we could have fit all 4 of them on the podcast for a few minutes.
4 groups of kids.
Oh, groups.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah.
That's so. I live way out in Grand Barachois, and we actually asked our neighbors. It's like a cottage place, right? So most people don't even stay there, and we asked our neighbors like, will we get trick-or-treaters? And they just laughed at us. Well, I wouldn't even have bothered asking if I knew a place like this would only get 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think what we're going to do going forward, though, is our recording night is Tuesday night. It will always be Tuesday night. And if one of us can't make it for whatever reason, we're going to continue on with the recording Tuesday night. Yeah. That's the plan anyways.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Unless both you and I can't make it, then...
Might go off the rails then.
We might really go off the rails.
Then we'll be moving it again. Yep.
All right, let's get into some football talk here. This is the Canadian Talk Show again. This is show number 6, if you will.
Yes.
Which is crazy. 6 is my favorite number. It's been my lucky number, so I think we're off to a good start already. Mm-hmm. In the high school finals, we are getting down to the semifinals, and game 1 of the semifinals actually goes in about 2 hours right across the street from where we are over at Rocky Stone Field.
Yeah.
You've got Bernice McNaughton playing against Moncton High.
Okay.
Moncton High is favored in this game, but last week Bernice McNaughton faced Odyssey High School.
Yeah.
And they were the underdog in that game and ended up winning it 28-21.
Oh, close game.
It was a very close game. With 3 minutes left to go in the game, it was 21-21. Here's a funny thing. I was a referee in that game. I said to my back umpire, his name is Aaron Dunfield. I said, Dunfield, do me one favor before you come to the field tonight. Print off the overtime procedures and bring them with you. Because I always like to have them in my back pocket. Mm-hmm. The overtime here in Canada works a little bit differently. Right, it's both teams get a chance to move the ball at their own 35-yard line.
Right,
but you have to be able to explain the rules to the captains and the coaches on how we're going to do things. So I just like to have my cheat sheet in front of me.
Yeah,
my back umpire forgot the overtime procedures.
So you stumbled through these instructions, did you?
Well, we almost didn't. We almost had to get to them. With about a minute 20 left to go in the game, Bernice McNaughton scores a touchdown.
Okay.
And luckily, I didn't need the overtime procedures.
Nice.
Because in regular season, there is no overtime. They in high school, they only use them in playoffs. So
I'm just curious of the quality of Bernice McNaughton. So, do you remember much about that drive? Is it a gritty drive down the field, mostly running the ball, or was it a big play? What was it?
So the kid from McNaughton can throw the ball. They have two guys, number 99 and they have a number 89, that line up usually in the double tight end formation.
Ooh.
And these are two big boys, and they run literally. They were running those tight ends 5-yard post slants, and he would just snap the ball and throw it, and one of these guys would get it. And what they did, similar to the Jets with Jenkins, they lined the number 99 out on the wide side, and he's playing against a kid half his size, and they're just throwing the ball up in the air, and he was going up and getting it.
Okay.
So they've got these two big tight end guys, and it will be interesting to see how Moncton High adjusts to those two guys tonight.
Yeah.
Odyssey couldn't make the adjustments.
I played this bonehead in Madden one night who was on the mic talking a bunch of crap. He sounded like he was about 11 years old, and he ran that exact offense.
Did he?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the double tight ends, and he threw up the seams every time. And if he threw anything up for grabs, his big, powerful receiver. Yeah, anyway. That was probably a slight on Bernice McNaughton. I'm sorry. I know you guys don't get your playbook from Madden. At least I assume.
You never know. Now, Moncton High, they're getting into the semifinal night. They beat out St. John. I was at that game watching, and it was a tough game. There was a lot of flags, a lot of UR penalties. It got very, I wouldn't say dirty, but it got very cheap in the second half.
Okay.
And you got to remember, for some of these grade 12 kids, this could be, or most likely would be, their last game of football that they play competitively. And so the emotions were running very high in that game. Moncton High wins at 30-22. So they're off to tonight's semi.
I got to ask you something, because, and maybe some people listening might be wondering this too, but how would you define the line between cheap and dirty? Not to put you on the spot, but it did.
Yeah. It's a good question. Listen, in every single sport, it's not just football, you're going to have the player out there that plays recklessly, that is trying to injure another kid. Okay? Now, I don't think any of these guys were actually trying to physically hurt the other child or the other kid out there, but it's all after the whistle stuff. So the play goes dead, whistle blows, number 9 comes in and cheap shots this guy from behind. Then there's pushing and shoving, and so it was all after whistle stuff that normally your captains, and this was the biggest problem they had from the stands. I was watching this. The captains, who before the game, you always tell your captains, I want you guys to take care of after the whistle stuff. We're going to do our best. We don't want to throw our flags, so we're going to leave it up to you guys to clean that stuff up for us. The problem they had in that game, it was the captains doing it. Oh. So that's where it gets a little out of hand. It's tough to control 20. There's 24 guys on the field.
I got you. So, it just got chippy in chippy. Sort of a bad sportsmanship kind of way.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Emotions, right? It's an emotional game.
Yep.
Riverview High knocks off Fredericton 14-7. They're heading off to the semis as well.
14-7 slugfest.
Yeah, and they're going against Tantramar High School out of Sackville, who won 41-0 over Matthew Martin. And guess what? For the second time this season, a high school walks off the field at halftime. So in the last 3 weeks, Tantramar's had nobody to play a full 60 minutes against them.
Well, I'm not really sure what to say about that.
And they're playing Riverview High tomorrow.
Can I ask if the reason why Matthew Martin walked off at half was similar to other reasons? Or
So what I can tell you is they showed up with 24 guys dressed. Now, this team usually has at least 35 kids on the sideline. And from what I've been told from a player as well as a coach of that team, that the parents didn't want their kids to dress up against Tantramar.
So
this goes back to
almost a dozen Matthew Martin players were held out of a playoff game by their parents.
Right. And they showed up with 5 offensive linemen, and 1 offensive lineman goes down with a knee injury.
And what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Put a wide receiver at offensive line? Right?
Yep.
Tantramar's a big boy. So, they're big boys. So the actual linemen were having a tough time with them. So Tantramar is hosting Riverview High tomorrow. Riverview High's knocked them off already this year. That will be a great ball game to see. I'd love to watch it, but unfortunately, I'm heading out to the west side of the province. I'm going to be reffing St. Stephen versus KV High School.
Yeah, I would love to watch it too. I can just imagine the fire that Tantramar has, coming into this after losing that one to Riverview, and they definitely didn't feel like they should have lost it. Our buddy Logan was on the show after the big win and mentioned, that some of the guys in Tantramar, it got the best of them, and they didn't show great sportsmanship at the end of the game. So this should be an absolute slugfest, and hopefully, hopefully they finish the game.
Hopefully it should be a great game. They're bringing in officials from Fredericton to handle this ball game, so there will be no local officials. And outside that, the only other game we've got in the semis this week is Ormucto's playing against St. Malky's in St. John. So
okay.
There's your high school wrap-up. We are going to get into some AUS because it was a huge weekend for the AUS. This past weekend was a big weekend for the Mounties. If you remember, heading into the weekend, the Mounties had to win, and they needed Bishops to knock off X. So let's talk about the Mounties game. So Mounties kick off with the scoring. There's a touchdown drive from Jacob Lux to Milik Richards.
Yep.
They were off on a great start. After that, both teams were having trouble getting into the end zone, and the second and third quarter was really a field goal exchange. Both teams exchanged field goals. The score was tight throughout the entire game, and finally in the fourth quarter, number 21, Chris Reed, the running back, finished off a drive with about a 20-yard run into the end zone.
Nice. And
Mounties do what they had to do. They won this game 26-25 in a very tight, very emotional game. And, so they got what they had to get done.
They did. They control, remember what I was saying in our last show, go out there, control what you can control, and hopefully you get a little help. I mean, they were in the position that they were in for whatever reasons, right? We're not going to poo-poo all over, whether they brought a solid effort week in and week out early in the season. I'm sure they've learned from that. They really handled business when they had to, but they put themselves in a position where they needed help. And I think they needed help from the wrong team, to be honest.
They did, because guess what? And remember I told you Saint hasn't really shown up the last 2 weeks? They showed up in this ball game. They knock off Bishops 27-14, and they're headed off to the AUS semifinal.
Yep.
So that's it for Mount A. Now, what's really interesting about Mount A, they had 3 one-point games this year, and all they needed was one of those games to fall another 1 point in their direction, and they'd be heading off to the semis. But it is St. that's moving off against the St. Mary Huskies. That game will go Saturday at 2 o'clock. With the winner of that game advancing off to the Loney Bowl at Acadia University on November the 11th.
Good. Well, you know what? Good season. Didn't turn out quite the way it should have. Clearly, Mount A was one of the best teams in the AUS, and just didn't show it for a full year. But, Jacob Lux healthy now. Luke's, however we say it.
Yeah, Luke's Lux.
I'll have to look into it, but I don't think they're losing any of their big guns.
No.
Maybe Chris Reed. But I don't think any of those other guys, the local guy, receiver, and Richards, I think are both coming back.
They're both coming back, yep. Yeah, so they're going to have a big part of their offense still intact next year.
Poised for a big year. Yeah. They might come in favored again.
So here's your final standings in the AUS. Acadia's first overall, 6-2.
Yep.
St. Mary's finishes up the year at 5-3. St. and Mount A both at 4-4. and Bishops follows up 1-7.
So walk me through this. 3 teams make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So as it stands, Acadia will get a bye.
Yep.
X will play off
Against St. Mary's.
Against St. Mary's. The winner there plays Acadia. The winner of that is the AUS champ. And then will they move on to face big competition?
They do. So this year, Atlantic Canada hosts what's called the UTEC Bowl.
Okay.
Every other year, the UTEC Bowl is in Atlantic, and then it either goes to the Ontario Conference or the Western Conference. And when it's in the Western Conference, where I was last year, it's called the Mitchell Bowl.
Oh, yeah, I know you talk a lot about that. Yeah, okay.
Because we're hosting the bowl game this year, it's called the UTEC. So that bowl game will be at whatever team wins the Loney Bowl in Acadia on November the 11th. Okay? So that's how that works.
And they get to play in it.
The winner of that will be... The winner of the Loney Bowl will be represented in the game as well as hosting the game.
Okay, and then who will come in and face this winner in the UTEC Bowl?
From what I've been told, it's the Ontario Conference coming here this year. So
so they rotate.
It could be Western, it could be McMaster, it could be whoever comes. It will be a big school.
Big game.
Put it that way.
Yep.
So whoever wins this conference is going to have a big game that they have to look forward to.
Awesome.
Let's just talk about a couple leaders. Next week, when the regular season, I'm going to get into more stats, talk about some AUS award winners. But your leading passer for the AUS in the regular season, Caleb Scott, finishes the year 2,056 yards. Most touchdown passes thrown, though, is Cody Cluett with Acadia with 14.
He really came on that, yeah.
Dale Wright from Acadia rushes for 1,030 yards, so he got 1,000 yards rushing. Remember, in an 8-game season. That's pretty good.
And that was Ray Perkin. Ray Perkin brought him up for most... is it MVP in the AUS or most outstanding? MVP?
MVP, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was Ray's pick, and it's looking good now.
Yeah, 1,000 yards in 8 games. That's pretty decent.
Well, that's huge, yeah.
Leading receiver yards-wise was Archelius Jack from St. Mary's with 731 yards. Okay?
Yep.
So that's your AUS roundup. That's all I got for you for AUS.
Okay.
Let's get into some CFL.
Let's do it.
All right. So, as you know, we had week 19.
Week 19.
Last week.
So weird.
And it was a big week for numerous reasons. We needed, Ottawa had to win that game. They had that big game against Hamilton, right?
Yep.
And this was a very interesting game. You saw the game.
Yeah.
Why don't you take the lead on this one?
Listen, like I told you, you asked me for my pick last week, and I picked, I said, I got to stand by our Red Blacks in this game, but, I have this soft spot for the Tiger Cats, and it's mainly just because they're so much fun to watch. And they came ready to play. Yeah. I don't know. I thought maybe they don't like Ottawa, but the Tiger Cats don't like anybody.
Right.
And I like that. And they came ready to play. It was a fun game. They've got a lot of things to think about going into next year. Like all the talk is both quarterbacks, even the guy playing now, Jeremiah Masoli.
Yeah.
They're all going to go elsewhere. Tiger Cats might bring in Johnny Manziel, or they might, it sounds like a lot of the quarterbacks in the league are going to shuffle, but I don't know that that's a good move. They let Gable walk because they had that other running back ready to step up. I think his name's Alex Green.
Yeah.
He's a beast. He only had a couple carries in this game, and Mazzoli was going crazy. And it was kind of back and forth, and Hamilton was really putting up a big fight, and it had a pretty exciting finish. And in the end, Ottawa did what they had to do. I watched the game, but and maybe you can help me with this. When I watch more than one CFL game, or even just one, so much happens in a CFL game compared to an NFL game that it all gets kind of foggy after a while. It just in terms of like, what was the finish of that one, and was that the crazy one? So it's a little lost on me now. But big win for Ottawa, and now at this point, and we'll get into this week's games or whatever. But Ottawa just did what the Mounties did. and now they need a little help.
Not
to get in, though. They're in, but they want that number one seed. So
the funny thing is when you talk about Hamilton and Jeremiah Mazzoli, you keep, and we've heard Manziel brought up a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big game for Hamilton, but look at the numbers he puts up. He goes 32 for 46, 438 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, who else can you bring in that's going to give you better stats than that from a quarterback perspective? 438 yards is a lot of yards for a quarterback. Plus, you look at his wide receivers. Brandon Banks, who I love that kid, 13 catches for 193 yards with 2 touchdowns. And Luke Tasker, which happens to be the son of former Buffalo Bills should-be Hall of Famer Steve Tasker, catches 12 balls for 139 yards and a touchdown.
So, one thing. Number one, Brandon Banks, he's going to be big next year because he just keeps. The thing about Jeremiah Mazzoli is he just keeps getting better as the season goes on. Like, he's had some shaky games. His accuracy can be a little questionable in his decision making, but he just keeps getting better. And I'd be surprised if Hamilton doesn't go into this. You mentioned Tasker. Scroll down on your screen because I believe Tasker is the guy that came close to 500 all-purpose yards. There's somebody in the CFL that had he had over 100 yards kickoff returning, and he had over 100 yards punt returning, and he had over 100 yards receiving, and he's now in the record books as one of the only people with over 400 all-purpose yards. Yeah. If it's not him, we're going to find out who it is.
It's Kenneth Allen. Kenneth Allen had 7 kickoff returns for 435 yards. Punts,
Kenneth Allen's the kicker. So
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so who's doing the punt? Who's doing the kick returning?
Kickoff returns. Punt returns, Banks. No.
Yeah, it's not this team. All right, so we'll find it later. There is a player that is in the record books now, and I'm sorry, folks. I'm a new CFL fan.
Yeah.
But we're gonna find this because this guy, I think he might even be for.
Here it is. Here, Dante Spencer with
Spencer.
Yeah, Dante Spencer with Red Blacks.
Yeah, I knew it was this.
He had 7 punt returns for 169 yards.
Yeah.
He had 6 kickoff returns for 165 yards.
And he had a bunch of receiving yards.
He had 9 catches for 133 yards.
Yeah.
And that does it.
And all they needed to do, Ray, I think, was get him to run the ball for 6 yards, and he would have reached 500.
Wow.
I mean, he could have gotten 6 yards anywhere.
Yeah.
And when I heard this stat, everybody was questioning whether Ottawa was even keeping track, which they likely weren't. But if they were, you go for 500.
Yeah. Anyway. And speaking of rushing stats, William Powell from the Red Blacks puts up 130 yards with 2 touchdowns. So what a great performance by the Red Blacks. They did what they had to do. Now we'll have to wait and see what Toronto does in Week 20.
Yep.
All right. Again, I didn't see any CFL. It was a busy week for me on the football field. BC Lions knocked off the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That's a bit of an upset, though.
Winnipeg, I didn't watch this game, but I heard a lot about it, and Winnipeg is down to its 3rd quarterback.
Yeah.
And the 2 guys they have behind, I believe it's Nichols, isn't it?
Yeah, Matt Nichols.
Matt Nichols. One of them's Dan Lefevre. I don't know if you know that name. Dan Lefevre was, you know how every year in the NFL, when quarterbacks are coming out, somebody finds a way to make a big deal out of about 12 guys, right? Like these low 6th rounders, this guy, he threw a lot of touchdowns in this crazy conference. Dan Lefevre got a lot of buzz when he came out, and I think it was the year Colt McCoy and those guys came out. And maybe even the 2012 Andrew Luck and RG3 and all that. Anyway, he bounced around the NFL. Really, I think he had a job for about 3 weeks, and now he's with Winnipeg. He threw 2 picks in this game. Yeah, and he has to start the final game. So Nichols isn't well, and there's some stuff up for grabs here. I think Saskatchewan. We'll find out later, but they're playing for a home playoff game still. Winnipeg has something to play for, and even the crossover into the East is not etched in stone yet either. But so it is a big upset, Ray, but their quarterback got hurt, and apparently what they have behind them is not competent whatsoever in the game. Yeah.
Well, that's that game. Good job. These next ones were. Here's a funny thing. Edmonton has really rebounded from their 7-game skid.
Yep.
Now they knock off Calgary. Now I don't know if Calgary. Well, no, Calgary did start Bo Levi Mitchell.
Yep.
Who threw for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Riley goes 284 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I saw the power rankings today for the CFL. Edmonton's ranked number 1 in the power rankings again.
They're on a tear, and they're in the playoffs.
What a crazy season for them.
Yep.
Right? They start off on a tear, they dive, and now they're making their way back up.
They were practically the Montreal Alouettes for about 6 weeks.
They were. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Alouettes, they get hammered by the Rough Riders 37-12.
Yeah.
Your buddy, Brandon Bridge, started. I don't know if it looks like he came in late in the game.
Yeah, he did.
Kevin Glenn started 104 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then Brandon Bridge came in 124 yards and an interception.
Threw a pick, yeah. Yeah, he had that one big game off the bench, and then now he's really falling apart every time he's in there.
Look at your real big buddy, though, Trent Richardson.
Yep.
20 carries, 127 yards with 2 touchdowns.
I started him in CFL Fantasy as my sort of throw-in guy at the end because he's only he's $4,000 to $5,000, which is a really cheap player in there. And I sent my fantasy lineup to Ray Perkin, and within seconds he just replies Trent Richardson, eh? And I'm like, listen, there's not a lot to play for in this game. It's the end of the season. He's gotten better game to game, and I just have a feeling they're going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah,
they did. Big game, but he got hurt. I don't know if he can play this next game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good day for him. So the final CFL standings after Week 9, Calgary's still ranked number 1 overall
19.
In the West. Then Winnipeg and Edmonton are tied at 11 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see. We'll talk about Week 20 standings here. And Saskatchewan's 10 and 7. They're going to the playoffs as well. All 4 of those teams. In the Eastern Conference, Ottawa 8-9-1 is holding first place overall right now. And Toronto is second at 8-9-0.
Yeah.
Hamilton and Montreal are out. Let's jump over to Week 20 real quick.
Yep.
Okay. When we look at Week 20, we've got Hamilton playing against Montreal. That game means nothing.
It doesn't, but Hamilton's going to come out ready to play and stomp them.
Yeah. Calgary's at home against Winnipeg.
So this means a lot because if Winnipeg can win this game, I think they clinch the home playoff game.
Yeah, they'll get a home playoff game. And Edmonton is at Saskatchewan. And that's a big game too.
If Edmonton wins the game and Winnipeg doesn't, I believe Edmonton gets a home playoff game.
A home playoff game.
The team that lost 7 in a row.
That's right. Yeah. And then Toronto is playing against BC. And if Toronto wins this game,
number 1 seed.
They'll host have the number 1 seed for the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
So that is how things look heading into Week 20 for the CFL. Andy, do you want to pick a lock out of those 4 games? It's a little tougher than the NFL schedule picking your locks because you only got 4 games to choose from.
Well, it is, but my rule is you always pick against Montreal, and I think Hamilton's red hot right now, and they're going to absolutely destroy Montreal. But let's make it interesting. I'll try to pick a lock from the games that actually matter.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that Edmonton is going to beat Saskatchewan.
Wow. Okay. I was going to go Calgary over Winnipeg, but Calgary is first overall locked. They've got no real reason to play starters. So I'm gonna pick the Toronto BC game. And BC just had a big win over Winnipeg. And for my Ottawa Red Black fans, I'm going BC in this game.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, I kind of agree with you that Calgary doesn't have much to play for, but they've cooled right off. They haven't been playing well at all, and it might be a good idea for them to try to gain some momentum for the playoffs. The last couple of weeks.
Well, they'll have I'm not sure if they get a bye week, but anyways, they got to get things turned around there. They got to get things turned around for sure. So that is your high school, AUS, and CFL updates. Andy, do you have anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
The only thing I thought maybe we could mention about the CFL is I know that the list of award nominees has come out.
Okay.
And I've heard some names.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you that the CFL's search game is bad. When I search CFL award nominees in Google, Nothing but 2015 and 2016 matches are coming up. I'm looking all over the CFL site. Not finding a whole lot on that. So I can tell you that for most outstanding player, though, it's Ricky Ray, I believe the quarterback from BC, I think, was in there, and then Andrew Harris, the running back from Winnipeg.
Okay.
And I think Andrew Harris actually qualifies as well to be most outstanding Canadian, which is a thing. Anyway, maybe we'll cover that next week because I can't find the list right now. But
the quarterback for BC is Jonathan Jennings.
Oh no,
and
not
just
him
in this past week, look, another 400 yards, 408 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception.
Maybe it is him then. Yeah, I was listening. I got most of this information from listening to the guys at Two and Out, and they were going through the names, and I recognized all the names, but it's hard to remember that list. So
our CFL game's going to get better. We're going to get better at our CFL game, and we're going to enjoy the playoffs. I will tell you one thing: every Grey Cup, us officials, we all get together. Somebody hosts a party.
Yeah,
you're going to have to come this year. It's a great CFL party, and I'll tell you, because the CFL game is always competitive. Like last year's game, Ottawa and Calgary. Calgary got off to a quick start. Ottawa, started coming back, and then Calgary took the lead, and at the end, Ottawa won the game. It's for some reason about the CFL game, you can never sit down. The action is always the teams always have a shot to win this game.
Yeah, and I noticed that this year. This is my first year really paying extra close attention to the CFL, and I mean, I'm still not paying close enough attention, clearly, but that's what I think I say this every week is the last thing you can do is walk away at halftime.
No,
it doesn't matter how ugly it is. The last thing you can do is walk away at halftime. And one thing that you said at the beginning of the year when we started talking CFL, that I was skeptical of at the beginning, and then week by week was more and more convinced of it. And now you couldn't be more right. Is how the kicking game in the CFL is a scoring play on both sides of the ball.
Both sides of the ball.
It's crazy.
Both sides of the ball. And here's the other thing I can tell you. Now, if we talk about the Buffalo Bills, it's a little bit different. They're near and dear, close to my heart. All you have to do is look over my shoulder. But for as far as the rest of, I used to sit on Sundays. I'd watch 3 or 4 ball games on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. And I just am having a real struggle this year with the NFL. But from the CFL perspective, every game I sit down to watch is entertaining.
Yeah. So far,
entertaining.
It's been good.
So there you go, guys. Just another quick shout out to our sponsors: Moose Light, Doyle's Corporate Image, Done Right Sauce. There it is. I almost said
Done
Buffalo.
Right Sauce. Well, this is the original one that still says Buffalo on it.
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah,
see,
look at that. It's a antique throwback.
Antique.
Yeah. Actually, that is the new one. Never mind. Yeah.
So my final thoughts before we get out of here, guys, is I want to send out good luck to all you high school teams. I want to send out, we're in playoffs here right across the board. Mm-hmm. So good luck to, whether you're a high school player, university player, or pro player. All 3 of you listen to our show, just so you know. We want to wish you guys all the best of luck heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, and extra special luck to Logan Grossman from Riverview. I don't want to be too biased in the high school football game, but until I meet another one of you guys, Logan Grossman's the man.
All right.
And Toronto, try not to win.
Try not to win. That's it. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
once a month.